The guy in the $20 tank top stood in the middle of the ballroom, clutching a yellowed piece of paper, his eyes promising murder. The other guests held their breath, waiting for the show to start. He flashed that signature cold smirk, knuckles cracking like he was about to flip a table and prove to everyone he was the king of the world. "Ethan Cole, get your ass out here." His voice cut through the hall, laced with an authority you couldn't argue with. Everyone figured a storm was coming, that this guy was about to conquer us all with his bare fists. But nobody expected the punch he'd been winding up for an eternity to land on a fistful of cotton candy. His face, which practically screamed my 3-year exile is over, slowly turned a deep shade of purple. Because no one was playing along. Someone even asked if he had a sore throat. The humiliation of being ignored was worse than a knife in the gut. I stared into the glass of 82 Bordeaux in my hand as the thing in my head called the plot did somersaults in my brain. It was screaming at me to splash this very expensive wine in the face of the man who had just walked in, the one dressed in a faded, washed-out army surplus jacket. The man's name was Damian Blackwood. Just the name told you he was the kind of heavy hitter who could make the earth tremble with a single stomp. Right now, he had his hands stuffed in his pockets, a smirk playing on his lips as he scanned my family's ridiculously gaudy ballroom. He didn't look like he was here for the free food. He looked like he was here for a hostile takeover. Never mind that his combat boots were still caked with fresh mud. The plot told me this was just a disguise. He definitely had a black Amex or some secret medallion with a dragon on it tucked away in his pocket. I sighed, gently swirling the crimson liquid. It clung to the glass, smelling of money and decay. I told myself that throwing wine this good on some dude's face was a crime against humanity. So, I tipped my head back and chugged the whole thing in one go. I let out a grape-flavored burp and snagged a massive, steaming rack of barbecue ribs from a passing tray. In a room filled with couture gowns and fake smiles, my move was like a grenade, instantly shattering the delicate masks of the socialites around me. Damien was clearly not prepared for this combo. The classic pose he'd struck, ready to absorb the insult and then unleash his righteous fury, froze in place. His eye twitched. He seemed to be waiting for me to call him a pauper or tell him to get out. But I just enthusiastically waved the greasy rack of ribs at him, my tongue a little loose from the wine. "Hey, pal. Delivery guys are supposed to use the back entrance. You might get stepped on in here. By the way, have you eaten? These just came out of the kitchen, fall off the bone tender. Want one?" The cronies around me, who had been waiting for me to put the poor guy in his place, were just as stunned. Their mouths hung open like a flock of ducks being collectively strangled. The entire ballroom fell so silent you could hear the smack of me chewing on a piece of cartilage. Damien's murderous eyes were locked on the ribs in my hand. His Adam's apple bobbed. I figured he was probably starving, maybe fresh off a Greyhound bus, but the pride of a returning legend wouldn't let him accept. Seeing him hesitate, I got anxious. I grabbed the platter and charged toward him like he was a long-lost brother. I don't have many vices, but I can't stand to see a man go hungry, especially one who looks like he just finished a double shift hauling cement. I grabbed the sleeve of his stiff, worn-out jacket, leaving 5 perfect, greasy fingerprints on the fabric. His body tensed instinctively, and a wave of cold menace erupted from him. Anyone else would have wet their pants, but I'm pretty thick-skinned and my nerves are shot. I just thought, man, this guy's personal AC is cranked way up. Kinda refreshing. Don't be shy. It's my grandpa's 80th birthday. Anyone who shows up is a friend. I shoved the platter into his arms and, as a bonus, pulled a small bottle of ghost pepper hot sauce I'd stashed in my pocket for my own stash. I pressed it into his palm with a look of pure sincerity. Eating ribs without the sauce is only half the fun. Trust me, this stuff will put hair on your chest. Perfect for a tough guy like you who's always out in the elements. Damian Blackwood stood there like a statue, holding a platter of ribs and a bottle of hot sauce. The lines from his script, the ones about post-humiliation comeback, were stuck in his throat. His face went from pale to steel gray, then from gray to a strange shade of magenta. Finally, he ground out a few words through clenched teeth. "Ethan Cole, are you humiliating me?" I burst out laughing. Licking the sauce off my fingers, I stared at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Dude, what are you talking about? A 5-star chef slow-cooked these for 6 hours. They're packed with collagen. I'm doing you a favor. helping your skincare routine. How is that humiliating? Wait, are you a vegetarian? Shoot, you should have said so. They've got a killer kale salad over there. I can get you a bowl. Damien had clearly never met a trust fund kid who refused to follow the script. He took a deep breath, his chest heaving like an old accordion. He shoved the platter of ribs into the arms of a terrified, tuxedo-clad waiter, then pulled a crumpled red document from his canvas bag. He slammed it on the $1 million mahogany table with a loud smack, making the champagne tower tremble. Cut the crap. Ethan looked closely. This is the marriage contract your grandfather begged my master to sign on his knees. I'm here today to break off this engagement. His voice boomed with righteous indignation as he stared past me, his eyes fixed on the figure descending the grand staircase. Isabella Frost, the #1 beauty in the city, my so-called fiancée, and the woman this story's hero was destined to fall head over heels for. Isabella was wearing a moonlight white dress, her waist swaying like a willow branch in the wind. She saw the scene, her brow furrowed slightly, her eyes exuding a cold arrogance. She was just about to deliver some classic line about how the tables have turned, but I beat her to it. I threw myself at the table, not to grab the contract, but to lovingly caress a handprint he'd left on the polished wood. Holy crap, dude. This is antique rosewood. Did you train in karate or something? This one slap is going to cost 10 grand to repair. I looked up at Damien, my face a mask of financial anguish, before my eyes finally landed on the contract. What? Break it off? With who? Isabella? Oh my God, you mean it? Is this really happening? The room went dead silent again. A crack finally appeared on Isabella's perpetually frozen face. She stared at me like I was an alien. Damien was stunned, too. His script said I was supposed to fly into a rage, tear up the contract, and call my bodyguards to beat him to a pulp. But right now, my expression was pure, unadulterated lottery winner joy. I whipped out my phone, opened the calculator app, and started tapping away furiously. I spoke to Damien with the seriousness of a Wall Street analyst. Okay, bro, let's do the math. This contract is, 20 years old? The original settlement was probably peanuts, but we gotta be fair. We have to factor in 20 years of inflation, plus emotional damages, lost opportunities. And all the years Isabella's been eating my family's food and drinking our wine. I mean, we're not hurting for cash, but business is business. I shoved the phone screen under Damien's nose. A very long number was displayed. See that? Adjusted for current market value and inflation. For you to take her off my hands, you owe me this much. It's not a lot, just a cool 8.88 million. A lucky number, Venmo or Zelle. You can use a credit card, but you'll have to cover the processing fees. Damien stared at the number, the muscles in his face twitching violently. He felt like his dignity was being ground into the dust by my calculator. He was here to deliver a beatdown, not pay a ransom. He pointed a trembling finger at my nose. Ethan, what do you think marriage is? A transaction? It's a sacred promise. How is it not a transaction? I blinked, feigning confusion. If you don't return the merchandise, how am I supposed to clear out my inventory? Besides, look at Isabella's face. She clearly wants to go with you. I'm helping you two lovebirds out. I'm so moved I could cry. Why are you the one getting all bent out of shape? Just as Damien's anger was about to boil over, just as he was about to use force to shut me up, Isabella, who had been standing silently, suddenly swayed. Her beautiful face went deathly pale, like a white lotus hit by a sudden frost, and she crumpled to the floor. Gasps erupted around us. It was a classic move, the damsel in distress's signature skill, fainting at a critical moment to give the hero a chance to show off his medical prowess. Damien was lightning fast. He lunged forward, catching her slender waist with one arm. The pose was so perfect it looked like a movie poster. He looked up, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Nobody move," he bellowed. "Her vital energy is blocked by a rare cold toxin. She needs immediate treatment. Everyone else, back off." As he spoke, he flicked his wrist, and several gleaming silver needles appeared between his fingers. The crowd, intimidated by his aura, scrambled backward, looking at him with awe. They thought this poor kid was actually a hidden master. I crouched nearby, watching him reach for the collar of Isabella's dress, and I nearly snorted with laughter. What a smooth way to be a creep. Cold toxin? In the middle of summer? Please, The ballroom's AC was just set too low. Seeing him about to make his move, I knew I had to do something or he'd steal the whole spotlight. I didn't stop him. Instead, I turned and rummaged through a pile of birthday gifts until I found a handheld, battery-operated fan I bought for my great-uncle. This baby even had a misting function. I flipped the switch and aimed it directly at Damien's sweaty forehead. A gust of wind, mixed with a fine spray of water, blasted him right in the face. The needle in his hand trembled, nearly jabbing Isabella in the nostril. He shot me a furious glare. "Ethan, what are you doing? This is life and death. Stop messing around." "I'm just worried you're overheating, man," I said innocently, inching the fan closer. "Look at you, you're sweating buckets. What if a drop falls on Miss Frost? That's not very sanitary. And besides, what's all this nonsense about cold toxins? Looks to me like she's just low on oxygen. It's too crowded in here. Here, let my high-tech negative ion fan give her a boost." With that, I aimed the fan right at Isabella's face. The powerful gust blew her perfectly styled bangs straight up, revealing her shiny forehead like some angsty middle schooler. Jolted by the cold wind, Isabella's eyelids fluttered. She was actually waking up. She groggily opened her eyes, not to the handsome face of her savior, Damien, but to a spinning blue plastic fan blade and my huge, grinning face looming over her. "She's awake. See? I'm a miracle worker." I slapped my thigh in excitement, then pointed at the needle still in Damien's hand. "Bro, you can put your sewing kit away. We believe in science these days. Physical cooling is the way to go. Look, the lady's awake thanks to me. Your voodoo stuff is obsolete." Damien looked at the disheveled Isabella in his arms, then at the $9.99 with free shipping fan in my hand, and he looked so angry he could have coughed up blood. His carefully orchestrated hero saves the damsel scene had been completely ruined by a cheap piece of plastic. He helped Isabella up, a dangerous glint in his eye. He clearly wasn't letting this go. The party reached its climax when my grandpa, the birthday boy himself, proudly brought out an ancient scroll, claiming it was a genuine masterpiece by a famous painter and invited everyone to appreciate it. This was another classic hero moment. Art appraisal. Only he would be able to see that the painting was a fake, or that there was a secret map hidden within it, and then blow everyone's minds. Sure enough, Damien pushed through the crowd, hands clasped behind his back, eyes narrowed. He stared at the painting for a long moment, then let out a cold laugh. Mr. Cole, you throw a fine party. It's a shame this painting is a forgery." The statement sent a ripple through the room. My grandpa's face turned green. Just as he was about to lose it, I jumped in. I didn't argue with Damien. Instead, I started clapping wildly, the sound echoing like firecrackers, startling everyone. "Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What an eye." I applauded as I walked over to Damien, throwing an arm around his shoulder like we were best buds. I announced to the crowd, "See this? This is what you call a professional. An expert. To be honest, I knew it was a fake all along. I bought it on Wish for $20 to get a laugh out of my grandpa. But I never imagined this guy would see right through my heartfelt, filial gesture. Amazing, truly amazing." My grandpa, who had been about to curse him out, swallowed his words and switched to a benevolent smile, as if he'd been in on the joke. He went with it. "Ha ha. So it was a gift for my dear Ethan. No wonder. I was thinking, this painting looks more like SpongeBob than a priceless artifact." Damien was dumbstruck. He had planned to expose a fake and shame my family. But with one sentence, I had turned him into a co-conspirator in a prank. The line he had prepared, "This painting actually holds a deeper secret," was now stuck in his throat. He stared at me, his eyes filled with a profound confusion, as if to ask, "Who the hell wrote this script? Since you're such an expert, brother, the painting is yours." I waved my hand magnanimously, rolled up the fake scroll, and shoved it into his hands. "Take it home. Hang it over your bed. It'll ward off evil spirits. Don't be a stranger, my man. I've got boxes of these fakes at home. I can get you a wholesale discount next time." After the party, Damien cornered me in the parking garage. It was inevitable. The place was dark and deserted, perfect for a little murder and mayhem. He was leaning against a beat-up Ford Econoline, a cigarette dangling from his lips, its red tip glowing in the dark. When he saw me, he dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his boot, and walked toward me. The killer aura was even thicker than it had been in the ballroom. "Ethan, You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? His voice was low, like a wounded animal's, his fists clenching. You think money lets you do whatever you want? Tonight, I'm going to teach you what happens when you push a man too far. Looking at his "I'm gonna eat you alive" expression, I was actually a little nervous. He was a trained fighter, and I was just a rich kid softened by years of luxury. If we threw down, I'd be toast. But my brain has a weird way of rewiring itself. I glanced at his flat stomach, then caught a whiff of cumin in the air. A light bulb went off. Push what? You're just hangry, aren't you? I completely ignored his clenched fists, threw an arm around his neck, and started dragging him toward the exit. Come on, let's go. I know this taco truck nearby. The food is insane, especially the ghost pepper brisket tacos. They're legendary. My treat tonight. We'll grab a couple of beers, and you can tell me all about it. Damien was so stunned by my hug, he went completely rigid. He tried to shake me off, but I stuck to him like glue, rambling the whole time. I'm telling you, their beer is ice cold. On a hot night like this, one sip and you'll feel born again. It's way better than fighting. You're a grown man. Why are you so angsty all the time? Life isn't just about suffering, you know? There are also tacos and cheap beer. He was half pushed, half pulled, all the way to the taco truck, sitting on a greasy plastic stool, staring at the mountain of tacos and two big bottles of PBR in front of him. Damien's entire worldview crumbled. He came to beat me up, and now I was peeling garlic for him and asking if he wanted extra hot sauce. Cheers! I raised my bottle and clinked it against his. Then, while he wasn't looking, I grabbed a shaker of satanically hot chili powder from the counter and quietly dusted a thick layer over his tacos. I grinned to myself. You want to fight me? I'll make you cry from spice first. It's called strategy. It's called a fiery friendship. Damien just stared at me, his expression a complex mess. Finally, he sighed, picked up a bright red taco, and took a bite. The next second, a blood-curdling scream tore through the night sky. It was a sound more tragic than any war cry he'd ever let out on the battlefield. After that soul-searing taco experience, the way Damien looked at me changed from pure disgust to a complicated mix of wariness, confusion, and a deep-seated suspicion that I might be clinically insane. The next morning, my grandpa, the old man who loves to dress in silk robes and act profound, insisted on dragging me to a private auction that supposedly had half the city's wealth gathered in one room. The second I stepped onto the thick wool carpet of the venue, I saw him, Damien Blackwood, stuffed into a cheap, ill-fitting suit that he must have rented. He was sitting next to Isabella Frost, his eyes closed, an enigmatic look on his face, as if all the multi-million-dollar antiques around him were nothing but garbage. According to the damn plot in my head, he was about to use his so-called all-seeing eyes to spot a hidden treasure inside some grimy, despised clay pot, for which he'd extract an ancient elixir, all while mocking me, the clueless rich boy. The auctioneer was on stage, spitting facts about a Song Dynasty vase. I wasn't listening. I was using my bidding paddle as a fan, trying to fight off the Arctic blast from the AC vents. Suddenly, Damien's eyes snapped open. A flash of golden light. Don't ask me how I saw it. It was as bright as a car's high beams and nearly blinded me. Shot from them. He was staring intently at a big, black crock in the corner, a piece of decor that wasn't even up for auction, and a cold, confident smirk spread across his face. That crock. I want it, Damien said, standing up. His voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to be amplified, cutting the auctioneer off mid-sentence. Hundreds of heads swiveled to look at him like he was an idiot. The crock honestly looked like something you'd use to pickle cabbage. It even had some plaster dust on it. I knew it. The main event of his show-off tour had arrived. Isabella was tugging at his sleeve, whispering frantically, "Damien, don't cause a scene. That's just a decoration." Damien snorted, hands in his pockets, his presence suddenly feeling 10 feet tall. A decoration? Only to you blind fools. Hidden at the bottom of that crock is a millennia-old warming jade. It's priceless. I have this thing where I get physically uncomfortable when I see someone trying so hard to look cool. It's not jealousy. It's a compulsion to participate. I shot my paddle up in the air and yelled, "5 million! I'll take it home to raise goldfish." Damien froze, the golden light in his eyes flickering. He glared at me. "Ethan, are you trying to outbid me again?" "Outbid you? Nah, man. Look how round that thing is. It matches my physique perfectly. I said with total sincerity, pulling a chocolate bar from my pocket and stuffing it in my mouth. Besides, you said there's jade in there. What if they crack it open and it's just a brick? How embarrassing would that be for you? I'm rich. I can take the fall for you. The auctioneer was speechless, staring at the unpriced decorative item. Damien gritted his teeth, the veins on his forehead popping. 10 million. 20 million. I didn't even blink, crunching loudly on my chocolate. And I'll throw in the mop standing next to it. Gotta make it an even set. In the end, I bought the pickle crock for $20 million. Damien sat in his seat, smirking and muttering something about more money than brains. I had a guy bring out a sledgehammer and, right there in front of everyone, smashed the crock to pieces with a resounding crash. Sure enough, a palm-sized piece of glowing green jade fell out. The crowd gasped. Damien was just about to stand up and deliver his "This is the power of a true master" speech. But I beat him to it. I picked up the jade, weighed in my hand, and then walked over to the cleaning lady who was sweeping up the debris. "Ma'am, this thing is nice and shiny. Take it home for your grandson. He can use it as a marble. And the broken pieces of this crock look pretty sharp. You could probably sell them to a recycling plant." I dusted off my hands and smiled at Damien, whose face was now the color of the crock's remains. "See that, buddy? This is called I do what I want. You've got the vision, but do you have my generosity?" After his failure at the auction, Damien decided to unleash his identity as a secret tycoon. He pulled out a beat-up old Nokia and sent a text. Less than half an hour later, the president of the city's largest bank, drenched in sweat and wearing a bespoke suit, came stumbling into the VIP lounge. The moment the president entered, he completely ignored my grandfather sitting in the main seat and made a beeline for Damien in the corner. He bowed a full 90 degrees, his voice trembling. "Sir, why have you returned in person? You only had to say the word, and the bank's entire capital would be at your disposal." Everyone in the room sucked in sharp breath. Isabella's beautiful eyes went wide with a look that screamed, "So you were the real hidden billionaire all along." Damien's lips curled into that classic "the prodigal son returns" smirk, but before it could fully bloom, I, who had been squatting on a chair picking my teeth, grabbed the bank president's arm. "Hey, Mr. President, perfect timing." I yanked on his expensive silk tie. "I was just wondering, my company has that $3 billion loan with you guys. Don't you feel even a little bit guilty charging me all that interest every year? Since you and my buddy here are so tight, how about we just waive the interest from now on? Or better yet, just write off the $3 billion as a little gift to my family." The sweat on the president's face was now flowing like a faucet. He looked from Damien to my innocent face, his knees buckling. Mr. Cole, banking regulations don't allow." "If they don't allow it, what are you doing here bowing like you're the help?" I let go of his tie and shoved my half-empty can of Coke into his hand. "Since you can't waive my interest, go get my boy Damien a black card. Don't go crazy with the limit. $500 should do it. His clothes are faded, and he clearly can't afford new ones. Look at the soles of his shoes, caked in mud. Take him to a spa, get him the deluxe pedicure package. Put on my tab." Damien's grand performance was cut short, his narrative hijacked and twisted into a charity case for the homeless. The bank president stood there awkwardly, holding the Coke can, not knowing whether to drink it or set it down. Isabella was looking at me like I was some kind of prehistoric monster, probably wondering, is this idiot really this clueless, or is he just pretending? "Ethan." Damien slammed his hand on the table. The solid wood cracked with a sharp snap. "You think I need your $500? If I wanted to, I could bankrupt your entire family with a single phone call." "Wow, that's fantastic." I jumped off my chair, grabbed his powerful hands, and started shaking them vigorously. "Dude, do it. Do it now. I've been dying to quit this stupid CEO job. It's nothing but boring meetings. Please, bankrupt me so I can finally achieve my dream of selling roasted sweet potatoes from a cart under a bridge. That's the life. Make the call right now. If you don't, you're my grandson." Damien was completely petrified. He'd faced down corporate giants and mafia bosses, but he had never, ever met someone who was actively begging to go broke. His threat, a line that would make a normal person piss their pants, had just crashed against my cheerful, shameless face and disintegrated into a pile of awkward confetti. After I'd messed with him enough, Damien realized he couldn't beat me with money or power. so he decided to get physical. One afternoon, I was in my top-floor office, my feet kicked up on the desk, deep in research about which brand of spicy chips had the best crunch, when he showed up unannounced. This time, he brought two huge guys in black suits. They locked the office door behind them. Damien stood in front of me, cracking his knuckles. An invisible force seemed to swirl around him, sending the papers on my desk flying. So this was the legendary Master's aura. A normal person would probably have trouble breathing under this kind of pressure. But me? A wave of heat washed over me, heavy and intense. But instead of crushing me, it felt like it was kneading my sore shoulders. It was actually kind of nice. I let out a contented sigh, sinking deeper into my leather executive chair, and waved him over. Whoa, buddy, you've got some serious skills there. Which massage parlor taught you this heated, deep tissue technique? It's perfect. My neck has been killing me. Could you put a little more pressure on the left side? Right on that knot. Damien's face fell. This was his martial pressure, an invisible technique that could kill. And I had just compared it to a hot stone massage. He let out a furious roar, his right hand forming a claw as he lunged for the top of my head. I didn't even flinch. In fact, I leaned forward, offering my head to him. Yes, that's the spot. My scalp is tingling. This is great. Hey, do your fingers have a TENS unit function? A little electrotherapy would really complete the experience. With skills like these, why are you trying to be some big shot? You should open a chiropractic clinic. $200 a pop. You make a killing, way better than all this murder and mayhem stuff. The two goons in suits looked like their eyes were about to pop out of their heads. Damien's hand froze, hovering an inch above my hair. He couldn't bring himself to follow through. He'd killed countless enemies in his life, but he'd never encountered a victim who was so cooperative. He felt like all his peerless martial arts were like a nuclear bomb trying to blow up a pile of mud. It was just soft and squishy, and all that came back at him was a feeling of utter helplessness. You're not afraid to die, Damien gritted out, his eyes filled with confusion. Why would I be afraid to die? If I'm dead, I won't have to listen to that Ice Queen Isabella lecture me anymore, or drink this bitter excuse for coffee. I pulled a mirror out of my desk drawer and checked my hair, which had been messed up by his aura. Dude, your technique is sloppy. Too violent. You could damage the scalp. Here. I pulled a crumpled $50 bill out of my pocket and held it out to him. Here's a tip. Go buy yourself some nail clippers. Yours are too long. You're making my head itch. Damien stared at the $50 bill in my hand and fell into a deep chasm of self-doubt. He silently lowered his hand, turned, and left with his goons, his back looking a little stooped as he walked away. I shouted after his retreating figure, "Come back anytime. Bring some essential oils next time." The vultures in my own family started circling too. My Uncle Rick, who usually can't even walk straight without a cane, suddenly colluded with an outside company. He stormed into our villa with a forged share transfer agreement and a team of lawyers. At that moment, I was planted in my $30,000 gaming chair, headphones on, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I was in the middle of a critical raid in my favorite online game, my healer character desperately trying to keep the team alive. "Ethan, get over here." Uncle Rick kicked my door open, slamming the documents onto my keyboard. "The old man has lost his mind. I won't let it degenerate like you run this company into the ground. Sign this. I'll leave you with $10 million, and you can get lost and disappear overseas." I didn't even turn around, my eyes glued to the screen, my hands a blur. "Uncle Rick, hold on. You're blocking the boss's health bar." "The share agreement?" "Yeah, it's in that pile of papers over there, the one propping up my foot bath. You need a signature? Just carve one out of a potato and stamp it yourself. As long as you don't stop me from getting this world-first kill, you can have the whole damn company." Uncle Rick had a whole speech prepared, full of threats and conspiracies. He'd even brought Damien along for backup. Don't ask me how they teamed up. The plot is just that stupid. But my reaction left everyone feeling like they'd thrown a punch in zero gravity. Damien, standing behind my uncle with a "let's see you get out of this one" expression, watched it all crack apart. He walked over and yanked the power cord out of my computer. The screen went black. I froze. Everyone in the room braced for an explosion. They thought I was going to lose it to attack him. Uncle Rick even took 2 steps back, ready to call security. I slowly turned my head to face Damien, my eyes a little red, my voice trembling. "Do you Do you know how much health that boss had left? 0.1%. I was up for 3 straight nights. Dude, you are truly ruthless. You're the most evil villain in the world. Fiend, if you want me to play my game, I don't want this stupid company anyway. Uncle Rick, the company seal is in the dog's house. Go dig it out yourself. Damien, my man, I'm begging you, go terrorize someone else. I'll pack my bags and get out of your way. And with that, I actually pulled a giant duffel bag out from under my bed and started stuffing it with spicy chips, my game controllers, and my favorite Pikachu pajamas. Uncle Rick stood there holding the transfer agreement, completely bewildered. Damien watched me pack up and leave without a fight, feeling zero satisfaction from his victory. In fact, he felt like a bully who had just stolen candy from a kindergartner. My attitude, total surrender, tinged with annoyance that they were interrupting my gaming time, was the most frustrating thing he'd ever experienced. Ethan, have some goddamn pride. Damien roared at my back. Can pride buy me a steak dinner? I waved over my shoulder without looking back. Uncle Rick, remember to pay the internet bill on time. And I think the company still owes $2 million in property taxes. You have fun with that. I'm off to wander the earth. I was planning on wandering the earth, but I was intercepted by my grandfather's bodyguards and dragged back to attend an even bigger charity gala. This event was the grand climax of the original story. This was where Damien was supposed to announce his true identity as the Reaper of the Northern Wastes, forcing all the arrogant elites who looked down on him to their knees. The ballroom was packed with high society. Damien stood on the second-floor balcony, draped in a custom-made black cloak. The spotlight hit him just right, making him look like a conquering king. Below, Isabella watched him, her eyes filled with fervent adoration. I, Damien Blackwood, the Reaper of the Northern Wastes, have returned today. All who stand in my way shall perish. His deafening roar echoed through the hall. Just as the terrified guests were about to drop to their knees and beg for mercy, I burst into the ballroom, leading a troupe of colorfully dressed circus performers, banging gongs and drums. Happy birthday to the Reaper. May you have a prosperous future. I shouted into 2 megaphones leading the charge. Behind me were monkey trainers, unicyclists juggling balls, and even 2 large bears wearing tutus and dancing. Damien nearly toppled off the balcony. The cold, bloody, murderous atmosphere he had so carefully crafted was instantly obliterated by the cheerful, chaotic sounds of a circus parade. The guests were frozen, looking back and forth between the man on the balcony dressed like Batman and the carnival unfolding below. The vibe was surreal. Hey, Damien, my man. Great reveal. Fantastic timing. I swaggered to the base of the balcony and yelled up at him. I heard you were making your big debut, so I hired the best circus in the city to celebrate with you. Those dancing bears are amazing. You should see them. And look, that monkey trainer looks just like my Uncle Rick. Everyone, what are you waiting for? Applaud. The Reaper wants to see a show. Damien was gripping the balcony railing so hard the steel bars were bending. He was trembling with rage, his eyes bloodshot. Ethan, shut your mouth. Do you have any idea what the Reaper is? It means I hold the world in my hands. Of course I do. And with great power comes the need for great entertainment to cultivate your spirit. I snagged a handful of popcorn from one of the bear's pockets and stuffed it in my mouth. Why don't you come down and have a wrestling match with the bear? I've seen its bear hug of doom move, and it looked a lot like your signature technique. Everyone's watching your Reaperness. Show us a trick. If you do a good job, I'll even have Uncle Rick give the company back to me, so I can sell it to you at a 50% discount. Damien stared down at the 2 goofy-looking bears below, then at the expectant faces of the guests who were now clapping along. He felt like his journey as a badass anti-hero had been permanently derailed onto the tracks of a comedy sketch. He wanted to kill someone, but when he saw the 2 bears waving at him, his vision went black. The rage he had been building up for years was violently forced back down his throat. He really didn't want to be the Reaper anymore. After the circus fiasco at the gala, Damien was like a wilted vegetable. He holed up in his secret hideout for days. According to my uncle, he was experiencing the life of the common man to strengthen his resolve. I did some digging and found out the guy was working as a laborer at a new commercial construction site on the outskirts of the city. He was trying to understand the world from the bottom up. It was a classic web novel trope. The powerful hero lives among the poor, gets bullied by some arrogant foreman, then smirks and makes one phone call to buy out the entire construction company. I thought it sounded like fun. I got some pocket money from my grandpa, set up a tent at the entrance of the construction site, and opened a pop-up shop selling ice-cold Cokes and hot dogs. I changed into an old t-shirt, shorts, and a pair of cheap plastic sandals. Fanning myself with a worn-out paper fan, I lounged in a wicker chair and watched Damien, drenched in sweat, struggling to carry 2 bags of cement. The moment he saw me, the bags of cement nearly crushed his feet. His handsome, sunburnt face twitched. He dropped the bags and stomped over, his lips chapped and his eyes full of rage. "Ethan, are you a ghost? I came here to haul bricks, and you're still here to laugh at me." "Not at all, my friend. I'm here to support our nation's infrastructure development." I pulled a frosty bottle of Coke from my cooler, popped the cap with a satisfying hiss right in front of him, and let the carbonated mist waft into his nostrils. I took a long, noisy sip. Ice cold. Hits the spot. Want one? $5. Not bad. I figure you only made $3 carrying those 2 bags. Carry 3 more, and I'll treat you to one. Damien was shaking with fury. A god-tier warrior like him was trying to cleanse his soul through honest labor, maybe get discovered by a passing heiress, and I had turned his spiritual journey into a joke. Just then, the stock character villain, a beefy foreman with a huge belly, waddled over, picking his teeth. He squinted at Damien. "Hey you, slacking off? If you don't get back to work, you don't get lunch." Damien's fists clenched so hard they cracked. I could practically see the calculations running through his head. Should he punch this guy through a wall first, or just bulldoze his entire family lineage? I jumped up holding a hot dog. I scurried over and offered it to the foreman with a sycophantic grin. "Hey boss, take it easy. This guy's a little slow in the head. I was just telling him off. Here, have a hot dog on the house. And you, Damien," I said, turning to him, "if you're going to haul bricks, then haul bricks. Stop drooling over my Cokes. If you work hard, maybe the boss will promote you to a bricklayer. That's a skilled trade, you know." The foreman took the hot dog, took a huge bite, and looked at Damien with contempt. "See? Look at this guy's attitude. You could learn a thing or two, kid. The Reaper? You look more like a leaky faucet. All you do is sweat." Damien's face was purple with suppressed rage. He wanted to show off his superhuman strength, but he was surrounded by blue-collar guys who wouldn't know his Reaper medallion from a bottle cap. He stared at me, looking like he wanted to shove the Coke bottle down my throat. I just leaned back in my chair, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through TikToks with the volume turned all the way up, blasting obnoxious laugh tracks into the dusty air. In this environment, Damien's solemn spiritual retreat had become a complete farce. Damien finally couldn't take the construction site life, with its smells of garlic and sweat, and he definitely couldn't take me sitting there sipping cold drinks and watching videos all day. He packed his bags and announced he was returning to his hometown of Silver Creek to pay respects to his ancestors. This was a major plot point. Returning home, facing down local bullies and restoring his family's honor with a single, badass move. I thought, I can't miss this. I had my uncle arrange a private helicopter overnight and arrived in Silver Creek 3 hours before Damien did. His family's ancestral home was a wreck, just a few crumbling brick walls overgrown with weeds. It was a pretty sad sight, but I looked at the surrounding green hills and flowing water, looked at the plot of land, and had a brilliant idea. I leased all the nearby mountains. When Damien, dressed in his tight black tactical gear, arrived at his doorstep with a somber expression, ready to kneel before the ruins and swear a solemn oath, he stopped dead in his tracks. The once desolate property was now decorated with festive lanterns and a giant, garish sign. The Reaper's Homestead, an immersive farm-to-table experience. Spend $99, get $30 off. A group of women in loud floral aprons were doing a line dance, swinging red ribbons. I was sitting on the large stone that used to be his front stoop. In front of me was a huge wooden tub filled with wriggling live catfish. "Hey, Damien, you're back." I greeted him warmly, grabbing a fish. It slapped its tail, splashing muddy water all over his face. "Come on in. I saw this place had great rustic vibes, prime real estate, so I developed it for you. If you want to honor your ancestors, the barbecue pit is over there. $288 gets you a free-range chicken and 2 cases of beer. You can eat and chat with your ancestors at the same time." Damien stared at his family's ancestral hall, which I had converted into a pig pen, and his fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. The atmosphere of returning to one's roots to reclaim glory was completely shattered by the cheerful country music blasting from the speakers. He strode over to me, his voice a low, threatening growl. "Ethan, did you dig up my family's graves?" Whoa, what a thing to say. Of course not. I looked wounded, dusting off my pants. This is preservation and development. I had the ladies pull all the weeds, and I even gave your grandpa's tombstone a fresh coat of paint. Hot pink. It's very eye-catching. You can see it from the bottom of the hill. I'm also planning to build a water park next to it. I've already got a name, Reaper's Revenge Waterworld. If you invest, I'll make you the honorary general manager. Damien was so angry he couldn't speak. He was about to attack when a few tourists walked up and tugged on his black cloak. Wow, this staff member is really committed to the theme. Is this cosplay? Hey, let's get a picture. I'll tip you. Damien was forcibly hugged by several middle-aged men and women, a look of utter despair on his face as he stared into a camera lens. He had probably never suffered such an indignity in his life. He came home to be a legend and ended up as a theme park mascot. I was laughing so hard tears were streaming down my face. I handed him a stack of punch cards and told him he was in charge of stamping them for guests. Isabella had come along on the trip back to Silver Creek. She started to develop a little crush on Damien lately. The Reaper's aura was still there, even if I'd done my best to tarnish it. Halfway there, our car was ambushed by a group of thugs calling themselves the Black Sharks. This was a classic trope designed to give the hero experience points. Kidnap the girl, hero saves her, their love deepens. The problem was, these thugs weren't very good at their jobs. They saw me, dressed like a rich idiot, and decided to shove me into their beat-up van too. Damien didn't fight back right away. I knew he was waiting, biding his time for the most dramatic possible moment to unleash his power. Isabella and I were tied up like Christmas hams and dumped on the concrete floor of an abandoned factory. Damien was taken to another room. The leader, a guy with a nasty scar across his face, brandished a machete and slammed it on the ground in front of me. "Mr. Cole, call your family. 100 million in cash. For every dollar short, I chop off a finger." I tilted my head, looked at the blade, and sniffed. "Dude, you need to sharpen that thing. It smells like fish scales. Besides, 100 million? You're giving me way too much credit. My uncle's in charge of the family now, and he'd probably pay you to chop me up. How about this? We'll call it 50,000. You give me room and board. This place is nice and cool. It'll save me a fortune on my AC bill." Isabella, who was next to me, burst into tears of frustration. She glared at me. "Ethan, have some dignity. You're the heir to the Cole fortune. How much is dignity per pound?" I rolled my eyes at her, then turned back to the scar-faced guy. "Hey man, you grabbed the guy in the other room, right? The one in black. He's the one with the money. He's the Reaper of the Northern Wastes. He's got mountains of gold hidden away. I swear, if you can get a single dollar out of him, I will lick this entire concrete floor clean right now." Just then, the door exploded inward. Damien, glowing with a golden aura, strode in with his hands in his pockets, looking impossibly cool. The goons who had been guarding him were all moaning on the floor. He stared at the leader and said coldly, "Let her go, and I'll grant you a quick death." The leader was terrified. He was about to raise his machete when I suddenly screamed at the top of my lungs, "Dude, don't listen to him. He's bluffing. He's broke. He's just a poor brick hauler. Use me as a hostage. He hates my guts. He'd love to watch you kill me. Whatever you do, don't let him go. He's still got that $8.88 million marriage contract in his pocket." Damien est grand, héroïque pose faltered. He was about to perform a one-man army slaughter, but my frantic shouting had completely changed the dynamic. The scar-faced leader actually did press the machete to my neck. Damien looked like his eyes were about to catch fire. He pointed at me. "Ethan, whose side are you on?" "I'm on the side of telling the truth." I yelped, feeling the cold steel on my skin. "Damien, my man, if you're so powerful, then pay the man. You can't just expect to get everything for free. What if this guy's hand slips? I'm a dead man. Just sign over the deed to your new theme park. I'm begging you." The situation was so bizarre that even the kidnapper was confused. He looked at the intimidating Damien, then at me, the world's biggest coward. He suddenly threw the machete down and stormed off, cursing, "Screw this. I'm dealing with two lunatics. One's a pathological liar, and the other one trying to get free room and board in my warehouse. This job sucks. The factory fell silent. Damien stood in the middle of the room, his golden aura dissipating awkwardly. Isabella looked at him, and for the first time, there was a flicker of disdain in her eyes. After all these setbacks, Damien realized that he couldn't beat me with conventional logic. Through his high-tech Reaper's Lair laboratory, he obtained a legendary genetic serum that was said to unlock human potential and turn a person into a superhero. One day, he specifically invited me to his private villa. Isabella was there too, looking at the small vial of blue liquid in Damien's hand with reverence. Damien stared at me, his eyes filled with a crazed light. "Ethan, today I will show you what true power looks like. This is the newly developed God Nectar. One drop, and I will be able to shatter this world with my bare hands." I leaned in, looked at the vial, and sniffed. It smelled strongly of mint. I shrugged and pulled a $3 bottle of blue Gatorade out of my own pocket, taking a big swig. "Wow, Damien, where'd you get your props?" "The color is identical to my drink," I said with a smirk. Just as he was about to deliver his big pre-transformation speech, I snatched the vial from his hand, tilted my head back, and chugged the entire thing. Damien was petrified. His mouth hung open. The serum, a substance powerful enough to wipe out an entire platoon, had just been consumed by me like a post-dinner refreshment. Isabella screamed, "Ethan, that stuff is lethal." I rubbed my stomach and let out a loud, minty burp. I suddenly felt a little warm. Damien pointed a trembling finger at me. You're a dead man. That power will tear your body apart from the inside." But all I felt was a strange itch. I scratched my stomach, then noticed the solid marble coffee table was in my way. I casually shoved it aside. With a loud crack, the table, which weighed several hundred pounds, flew across the room like it was made of styrofoam and shattered against the wall. Damien's jaw hit the floor. The divine potion he had worked so hard to acquire had just been used to my benefit. I looked at my own hands and remarked, "Man, this stuff has a real kick. Is there Red Bull in this? Hey, Damien, you got any more? A couple more bottles of this, and I could go haul 10 truckloads of cement. No sweat." Damien finally broke. He collapsed onto the sofa, buried his face in his hands, and actually started to sob. "I can't take it anymore. I don't want to be the Reaper. Why? Why does this idiot have better luck than me?" I quickly walked over and patted his shoulder comfortingly. "Don't cry, man. This just means we're destined to be partners. Look, you provide the capital, I'll provide the muscle. We can start a moving company. You handle the PR, and I'll carry the grand pianos. We'll be rich." Damien, still not giving up, insisted on taking me and Isabella to the legendary Demon's Maw, a forbidden cavern where a mythical sword was said to be hidden. He believed that with this sword, he could finally regain control of his destiny. The place was a creepy cave deep in a dark forest, crawling with poisonous snakes and scorpions. When we finally reached the deepest chamber, a furious roar echoed from the darkness, and a giant black gorilla with glowing red eyes emerged. This was the legendary guardian beast. Damien was ecstatic. He drew his own sword and shouted at the gorilla, "Beast, stand in my way and die." Isabella hid behind him in terror. Damien was preparing for an epic battle. But I looked at the gorilla's gaunt belly and dull eyes and felt a pang of pity. From my oversized backpack, I pulled out a catering-sized tray of saucy barbecue ribs I had packed for our picnic, along with several bunches of bananas. "Hey there, big guy. You look a little thin." Ignoring the gorilla's roars, I unwrapped a rack of ribs and tossed it over. The gorilla caught the ribs, sniffed them, and its ferocious expression instantly melted into one of confusion. It licked the sauce, and its whole face lit up. It began to devour the ribs with loud, happy smacks. Damien stood there, frozen, his sword trembling in his hand. I kept tossing food over. After the ribs, the gorilla ate the bananas. Finally, it sauntered over, sat down next to me, and affectionately patted my head with its huge, hairy hand. I handed it a can of Coke. It mimicked my actions, popped the tab with a fizz, took a long, happy gulp, and then let out a thunderous, contented burp. "See that, Damien? This is called interspecies diplomacy," I said smugly, pointing at the glowing red sword the gorilla had been sitting on. "Let's not fight. It's too violent. Hey, big fella, can my buddy here borrow this sword? I'll bring you 2 cases of Jack Daniels tomorrow." The gorilla contemptuously kicked the legendary divine weapon over to Damien's feet, then threw its arm around my shoulder and insisted on showing me its collection of shiny rocks back in its den. Damien knelt on the ground, holding the sword of his dreams, and watched me and the gorilla walk away, arm in arm. He was completely broken. He suddenly realized that in the face of an unpredictable idiot like me, all the superpowers, medical skills, and legendary titles in the world were less effective than a tray of barbecue ribs. Isabella. Damien looked up, tears welling in his eyes. Do you think maybe I should go to culinary school? After the barbecue ribs-induced mental breakdown in the demon's maw, Damien disappeared for a whole week. When he reemerged, he sent out the Reaper's summons, and the entire city of Viridian buzzed with anticipation. This time, he was going bigger. He was going to summon his 3,000 elite guard from around the globe to the top floor of the city's most luxurious Hilton hotel. According to the plot, on that day, countless helicopters would circle the sky, and thousands of men in black suits would kneel on the streets, chanting in unison, "We welcome the return of the Reaper." As the villain, I was supposed to crash the party with my bodyguards and get trampled like an ant. I looked at the blazing sun outside and thought, those 3,000 guys are going to get heat stroke standing out there all day in black suits. So I took matters into my own hands. I went to a wholesale market and bought out their entire stock. I hired 10 large trucks and filled them with $2 paper fans, $10 tank tops, and countless boxes of Pepto-Bismol. When I arrived at the hotel with a legion of neighborhood ladies from the local square dancing club and a crew of bricklayers from the construction site, the 3,000 elite guards were already lined up. They were pale, drenched in sweat, and had a look of sheer desperation in their eyes. Damien stood on the hotel steps, wearing his black cloak and holding his solid gold mask, just about to put it on. "Don't do it! Don't do it! Reaper, my man, we've got a medical emergency." I screamed, running towards him with a red plastic bag. Damien's hand trembled, and the golden mask nearly fell to the ground. He glared at me. "Ethan, this is the most sacred gathering of the Reaper's Legion. What do you think you're doing? Forget the gathering. Look at your men. They're about to turn into human jerky." I ignored him completely, pulled a bottle of Pepto-Bismol from my bag, and unceremoniously shoved it toward his mouth. "Everyone, don't be shy. 2 bottles per person. Drink up. Fans for everyone. Tank tops are free for the taking." The ladies I brought were incredibly efficient. They charged into the ranks of men in black, forcing the pink liquid down the throats of the elite assassins. The assassins' eyes watered from the chalky taste, but a cooling sensation spread through their stomachs, and many of them actually looked grateful. The scene in front of the hotel instantly transformed. The murderous, epic gathering of the Reaper's Legion had become a community outreach event for heatstroke prevention. 3,000 elite guards, now fanning themselves vigorously, took off their constricting black suit jackets and replaced them with the white tank tops I had brought, which were emblazoned with the words, "Public Servant." Damien stared at the sea of white tank tops before him, then at the golden mask clenched in his fist. His eyes grew moist, not with emotion, but from the Pepto-Bismol I had forced him to drink. "Ethan, you win," he said, his voice hoarse as he threw the mask to the ground. "You didn't come here to fight me. You came here to run a charity." Damien finally had enough. He sent me an ultimatum. Time, midnight. Place, the rooftop of the coal industry's skyscraper. The wind was howling that night, chilling me to the bone. I arrived on time, wearing a thick hoodie and with a hand warmer stuffed in my pocket. Damien was already there, standing against the glittering backdrop of the city lights. He was a silhouette in the darkness, holding the legendary sword, its blade glowing with a faint red light. "Tonight, one of us dies," he said coldly, his long hair whipping in the wind. I was squatting by the edge of the rooftop, checking my watch. "Dees, it's the middle of the night. Dude, do you know how windy it is up here? I'm going to catch a cold." He ignored me. He slowly raised the sword, and a world-ending aura began to emanate from him. The very air around us seemed to freeze. Just then, the rooftop door burst open. A food delivery guy in a yellow vest rushed in, carrying 2 huge insulated bags, panting heavily. "Who ordered the extra spicy buffalo wings?" "Order number 007. "Hurry up! I'm getting a late penalty," the guy yelled into the darkness. Damien's hand twitched, his concentration nearly breaking. Then came a second delivery guy, a third, and a 30th. In less than 3 minutes, the freezing cold rooftop was filled with 10 large round tables. The bubbling sounds of hot sauce and the rich, spicy aroma of fried chicken instantly overpowered any trace of Damien's killer aura. "Come on, man, sit down. We can eat and fight at the same time," I said, expertly unfolding a chair and waving Damien over. I called every delivery guy in the neighborhood. On a cold night like this, nothing beats a bucket of wings drenched in Frank's Red Hot. It's a spiritual experience. If you can kill me before you finish this plate of celery sticks, I, Ethan Cole, will not fight back. Damien looked at the tables piled high with steaming food, then at the 30 delivery guys staring at him expectantly, waiting for their 5-star ratings. He felt that the most appropriate use for the divine weapon in his hand right now was to slice blue cheese. "Ethan, who in the hell are you?" he asked, finally putting the sword away and sitting down across from me, picking up a wing. "I'm just a regular guy who doesn't like his food to get cold," I said, pushing a bowl of ranch dressing towards him. "Eat up. This stuff smells amazing. Why would you want to stand in the wind, trying to look cool, when you could be doing this? Are you insane?" That night, there was no epic final battle. Instead, 30 delivery guys and the most powerful man in Viridian City sat on a rooftop, sweating and eating buffalo wings. Damien drank 3 6-packs of beer, and at one point he had his arm around a delivery guy, sobbing his heart out, confessing that his lifelong dream was to be a master chef, but he had been forced to be an assassin for 10 years. Just as the party was reaching its peak, the world suddenly froze. The delivery guy raising his beer can stop midair. Damien's tears hung on his eyelashes. A cold, glowing orb of light materialized in the air. It was the plot monitor, otherwise known as the system. "Villain Ethan Cole, you have severely deviated from the main storyline. Damien Blackwood is supposed to bathe this rooftop in your blood and ascend to the pinnacle of the world over your dead body." A robotic voice intoned from the orb. I was holding a chicken wing, and I looked at it calmly. "Pinnacle of what? Look at him. Is he happy now? You forced a guy who wants to cook to be a king of assassins. That's just cruel. It is destiny. It is the epic, bloody tale the readers demand." The orb of light flashed violently. "Get over yourself. Nobody wants to read about that tired old stuff anymore," I scoffed. "People are more interested in watching the Reaper learn how to properly season a brisket. How about this? Let's make a deal. Forget this whole revenge plot. My family has plenty of cash. We'll sponsor a citywide Top Chef competition. The grand prize will be my 50% stake in the company. How's that for a plot twist? The ratings, the buzz. It'll be way better than just killing off another boring villain." The system went silent. It seemed to be calculating the potential benefits of such a drastic change. After a long moment, the robotic voice returned, this time with a hint of hesitation. "What about Isabella Frost? She is the female lead. Isabella is in my kitchen right now, learning how to make the perfect pot roast for my family's cook. She said she's tired of being an ice queen. She wants to be a food blogger." I stood up, dusting off my pants, and waved at the orb. "Trust me, it's time for a rewrite. A hot meal is better than a hot-headed hero. The smell of a good barbecue is better than the stench of blood." The orb of light slowly faded, and the world began to move again. Damien sniffled, looked at me, and his eyes held a new light, the kind you reserve for someone who just saved your life. "Ethan," he said seriously, "from now on, I'm with you." "With me where?" "Don't forget, you have to report to the barbecue joint tomorrow morning. The old lady who runs it said your brisket slicing technique is all wrong. You need practice," I said with a grin. In the days that followed, a strange new spectacle appeared in Viridian City. The once feared Reaper of the Northern Wastes traded his black cloak for an apron that read Viridian's best and opened a barbecue food truck on a street corner. And I, the city's most notorious rich kid, became his dedicated dishwasher and hype man. "Come on, come all. Get your Reaper ribs. So good they're criminal. One bite of the Reaper's ribs, and you'll live to be 99. I shouted into a megaphone, dancing in front of the truck. Damien wielded a giant carving knife with the same intensity he once used for his sword, the force of his chopping shaking the entire truck. He cooked with his eyes closed, in a state of deep concentration, as if he weren't just smoking meat, but forging some kind of divine elixir. Whenever local thugs came to collect protection money, he wouldn't even bother to look up. A casual flick of his wrist would send a splash of hot barbecue sauce their way, or a well-aimed toothpick would snap their belts, causing them to drop to their knees in terrified apology. Isabella wasn't idle either. She sat on a small stool behind the truck, peeling potatoes. And I have to say, when an ice queen peels potatoes, it has a certain ethereal charm. It drew a crowd of single guys who pretended to be there for the food. "Hey, Damien, isn't this better than being the Reaper?" I asked one day while scrubbing a greasy tray. He wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at the long line of customers. A genuine smile finally spread across his face. Not his old, twisted smirk, but a real, contented smile that smelled of wood smoke and happiness. "Ethan, I used to think the world owed me something. Now, I just think the world smells delicious," he said, placing a heaping plate of pulled pork in front of an old farmer and adding a complimentary side of cornbread. "My Uncle Rick once tried to come and cause trouble, but one look from Damien sent him running for the nearest public restroom, which he then had to clean for 3 days as penance." The entire city was obsessed. No one talked about billion-dollar corporations or hidden masters anymore. The only thing anyone cared about was, is the Reaper's barbecue sauce extra spicy today? A year passed quickly. The Cole family business, far from collapsing, actually boomed thanks to Damien's new celebrity status. I launched a Reaper's barbecue franchise that went global. The 3,000 elite guards who once chanted about slaughtering their way back to the northern wastes were now head chefs and regional delivery managers at our various locations. The legendary secret organization, the Reaper's Legion, had become the world's largest food delivery platform. Their slogan was, "With the Reaper on your side, your food arrives faster than the speed of light." Today was a big day for me. I was retiring. I was only in my 20s, but I felt like I had made enough money and played the part of the villain long enough. I was carrying a duffel bag, ready to fly to some small island in the Caribbean and soak up the sun. Damien and Isabella came to see me off. Isabella was pregnant now. She blushed as she handed me a box of homemade, slightly burnt, but heartfelt chocolate chip cookies. "Ethan, are you really leaving?" Damien asked. He instinctively tried to strike a warrior's pose, but relaxed when Isabella playfully slapped his arm. "Yeah, I'm out. This place doesn't need a villain like me anymore, so you can't show off. You guys live a good life," I said, waving as I headed for the security checkpoint without looking back. Just then, an announcement came over the airport's PA system. "Mr. Ethan Cole, your order of 99,999 racks of barbecue ribs has arrived. Please pick it up at the information desk." The entire airport turned to stare at me. I froze. Then I saw them. All 3,000 of Damien's guards, their suits gone, now wearing matching white public servant tank tops, standing in the middle of the terminal. They gave me a deep, synchronized bow. A farewell to our favorite idiot villain, Ethan Cole. May your journey be safe, and may you never have an empty plate. Their voices thundered through the terminal, making the glass windows rattle. I cover my face, try not to cry with laughter. These guys just had to give me one last, epic, public humiliation. I grabbed one of the hot, steaming racks of ribs they offered me, and took a huge bite. It was perfect, just like always. Life, after all, isn't about revenge and epic battles. Sometimes it's just about being able to sit down together, eat some good food, and watch the sunrise. Being a villain or a hero, what does it really matter? I swaggered onto the plane, leaving behind a world that no longer had room for swords and shadows, only the warm, delicious smell of barbecue. End.